Family, we here. Give me a second. I gotta get my life together. I know that's a little off, but I always forget to. I'm always telling people to join the the live or energy reading, and I always forget to open up the lobby so they can join, which is wild, but we're in there. So glad to have you back. What am I doing with my life now? Give me a second. Do. Hope you've been having a fantastic week since the last time we were together. Hey, Liberty. Don't you got your battle tonight? I'm gonna try to make sure. Well, I know you'll leave and give yourself enough time anyway. But I definitely want you to be able to hear some of the conversation about identity and separating the identity. We did so much work to get here that we finally at this phase where we wrapping up this idea of identity. Woo! If you haven't seen the episodes, you can go on back. Oh man, listen. You already know how that goes. You know what I mean? Yeah. They be recruiting all their friends to come in there and vote for them or whatever. But we ain't gonna hate, cause I'm gonna make sure you stay in the winner's circle. Cause I ain't gonna throw it. I'm gonna make it hard, but they don't know we're live, so you got a better chance. They gonna love D'Angelo. So that's gonna ensure you stay in that winner's circle. Family, again, welcome to Swami Live, where we discuss things we discuss all forms of healing. I am Soul Swami, and here, like I said, we discuss all healing in various forms through energy readings, live discussions, all types of things. We even have a spinoff show that is on Thursday evenings, which is a book club, which is in an effort for us to be able to reconnect to that childlike energy in us by having someone read to us. We are live every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can catch us guaranteed on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. And Instagram, as long as it's acting right, we on there. Every time we try TikTok, we get banned. So I actually sent them an email today to see what they're going to say about that. Last time, I sent them an email and asked them that. It's like, because we want to. No, they were just saying that they only give that to a few people. It's beta. But it ain't beta. They got the ability to do it right now. They just be tripping. But they do leave if I stream from my phone or their app, they be like, you can stream all you want. They just don't like me using Streamlabs, but they need to step their game up. Give me the abilities that Streamlabs does. Anyway, we start every episode off with some energy work. And this week we are on the heart. The color for that, if you are in the color therapy or light therapy for your heart, is green. Hence the green tinge lighting going on right now. Your heart represents your love, compassion, your empathy, your kindness, and your acceptance of self and acceptance of others, with allowing them to be who they authentically are and you still being able to accept them. As I said, the color for your heart is green. So I got my green tie on today and a green shirt and green lighting to match the color therapy. If you are into essential oils, you want to think of things like rose, jasmine, geranium. If you are in, I said geranium, excuse me. If you are into crystals and gemstones, you want to think of emerald, jade, green calcite, rose quartz. Boop, boop, boop. One of my favorites. This is my anchor stone. I keep it in my pocket when I'm doing something. some stuff. Aventurine is pretty good, and green tourmaline are all good for your heart therapy. For your heart's energy. The next thing we want to do is a little bit of sound therapy. I got my heart drum out and the bowl, but we'll start with the bowl and then we'll move into some breath work and visualization. Hey, Sherry. I'm excited. Side note, I finished the book, Sherry. I just want you to know. And everything should be legit. I got my link for the ebook. So the ebook is technically available now. But I'm just waiting on my link for the paperback so I can introduce all that together. Thank you. Thank you again. And this definitely will be the first of many that we will write together. Well, not necessarily write together, but we'll help build the foundation of the books together. But it'll be the first of many. It's like kind of warm-up book, so it's a short read, but a powerful read nonetheless. Hey, I can say that I definitely agree that the length of the book does not decide the quality of the book. And like I said, this is more of a not like I said, but this is more of a manual to help people to be able to recognize some of the things that they need to do to create these spaces and insert themselves in those spaces. So it's definitely a good guide, All right, so next we generally do a little bit of breath work, and this week I think I want to keep it simple. With green, I want to do triangle breathing. And if you are unfamiliar with triangle breathing, that is, you breathe in for a 3, you hold for a 3, and you exhale, release for a 3. But you don't have to worry about focusing on the count. All you have to do is just listen to the sound of my voice and follow my guidance. On the count of 3, we will start our breath work. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 3, 2, 3. Hold 3, 2, 3. Release 3, 2, 3. Breathe in 3, 2, 3. Hold 3, 2, 3. Release 3, 2, 3. Last time, family. Breathe in 3, 2, 3. Hold 3, 2, 3. Release 3, 2, 3. Now, as you relax and you sit there, I want you to take a deep breath and repeat these affirmations after me. I love myself and others. I deserve to be loved. I forgive others easily. My heart is fully open and pure. I follow the voice of my heart. I love myself and others. I deserve to be loved. I forgive others easily. My heart is fully open, loving, and pure, and I follow the voice of my heart. All right, family. So yeah, it is kind of exciting, because and I say this to you too, because you were a part of this process when. Actually, when I was sitting at that white folding table, that white spades table, and and an ottoman, but you were part of the process when the seven spaces of healing was just a thought and an idea, something that we discussed, right? And one of the better compliments I got about that is now it puts some of the things that we talk about into a tangible form for people to be able to navigate at their own pace, go back and review some things, and every time that they need it again, they have the opportunity to review it again in their own space. And some people are auditory learners. Some people still need that tangible material to help them learn. So it is a surreal moment. I laughed a little bit when I looked at my my sales page. It was just hilarious just to see. Jesus Christ, I can't get my life together. It was just wild to be able to see the thing that just popped in my mind. It was a song that we grew up by, Nine, N-I-N-E. And he's like, my name up in lights, N-I-N-E. So it was surreal seeing my name up in lights, N-I-N-E. So I know you might not, Sherry, you might know that song, but some of the other family might not know it. But yeah, that was a hit at one time. So just for our general, we generally start with a little general discussion. And one thing that I kind of noticed that's going on with a lot of the family and some of the people that I interact with is they're in this space of shifting from survival mode into that thriving mode and that energy of abundance. The ironic thing about that is the one commonality between all these people is the sacrifice for that, right? So when you talk about you want to leave from a space of survival into a space of abundance and thriving, no one really is clear on what that process looks like, right? But one thing that, like I said, one thing that winds up being important is it costs some sacrifice, right? It costs some, you have to wind up being in a space where you would normally use your survival technique tools. And now you have to constantly tell yourself not to use them. You have to keep moving as though you're not in this space of survival. And through taking those steps, you're moving to that space of abundance and thriving. And it gives you the tools, the confidence and the certainty in your ability that you can live that way. It actually gives you an opportunity to be able to practice control of your internal. So many of us allow the external to decide how we feel or how we should move forward or how we should adjust. But what this does is create a space where we practice the skills that it takes to live in alignment, to embody the energy of abundance, right? And ironically, I was having a conversation. On Monday nights we have the brothers meeting, and we were having a conversation, and something that kind of came up. One, I was laughing a little earlier because my homeboy gave a very good saying for us, right? I said it's a cost. It's a cost of sacrifice. My homeboy said it even better. He was like, you're gonna have to pay either way. So you might as well pay attention. I like that because that's the truth. You have to be attentive to your thoughts, your actions, the way you live, how you project, how you attract. All those things matter, right? And one thing that we came up in the conversation was this idea of weaponize, right? One of the brothers wound up using that word, and I almost felt triggered because initially when he said that weaponize, I immediately thought on how we use weaponize today. Weaponize today is usually used, the connotation has a negative connotation. Like we weaponize love against people. Is using these positive attributes or using some negative attributes to hurt or manipulate or to push people in directions that they may not necessarily be ready to go, right? So when he said this weaponize, I immediately felt triggered. It created emotions inside of me, and I recognized those emotions, right? But when those emotions came, we learned that feelings are the stories that we tell ourselves, right? So when these emotions arose inside of me, I paused. Because initially I wanted to start telling myself a certain story that no, weaponize isn't right because we don't want to weaponize. We don't want to do this. We don't want to weaponize our gifts against other people, right? But then through the conversation with the brothers, I had to recognize that there is a space for weaponize that does not have that negative connotation, right? One of the things that we say is a lot of times that when we learn, we get these tools, we learn these perspectives, we practice these things in actions, we say that we are sharpening our sword, right? And a sword is a weapon. It can shape, create, and take away, right? You don't have to just subtract with a sword, but you can create and shape with a sword as well. So it created a space for me to be able to identify my relationship with this idea of weaponized and move beyond that previous old understanding of weaponized into a new one that aligns with how I feel. We are sharpening our tools, right? And then the last thing, one of the brothers said something that was so powerful that I have to recognize. These tools that we are getting, these weapons for our spiritual war are not carnal. And that was the final thing that helped me solidify. I'm looking at this weaponized as though they are carnal weapons. Like, even though I said it's a sword, but it is not. These are the tools that we will use to navigate life, to fight this spiritual war that we are in, to become our higher selves. Yo, listen. I don't know if y'all heard that. I feel like my mic picks up my thoughts and everything. But yeah, I live on the street that they fly up and down the road all the time. I'm tell you, if you live anywhere near Johnston Road, you know what I'm talking about. That is a race track. It's a racetrack. Hey, Tatiana, thanks for joining us. I just told Sherry I finally finished the book. Whoop, 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 whoop. Not just finished the book, because I already said I finished the book. But I have the link for my ebook. It's on sale. I expect to get the link for the paperback book tomorrow. And after that, I'll wind up introducing it to the world where you can go ahead and purchase it and we'll market it. If you had the opportunity to be able to read it, I want you to be able to go and give a review. If you haven't read it yet, then go ahead, check your email, because I know you'll be like, I never sent it to you, but I did. Right? I did. So I hope you read it. All right. So recognize, family, that these tools that we are learning to help us move beyond are not carnal. They are here to help us fight this spiritual war that we are battling, right? So for last week, I appreciate it. Is that a sleepy face or a kissing face? I can't see. I got it. It's so far from me, so don't worry about it. Because if you put kissy face, it's probably gonna make it again. If it's I don't know what it is, sleepy face. If you put that, it look like it might be a celebration face. Forgive me. Last week, if you weren't with us last week, we discussed how does our whole discussion right now has been identity, right? One of the best things about that is our identity becomes our greatest weapon in this war. Who are we? How we identify. Those become the tools that we use to navigate this war, period, right? So last week we discussed how does our identity evolve over time. First, we recognize that identity evolves in life stages. Celebration. Kizzy face. Oh, you can see it. There we go. Celebration. Right. I started thinking about Rick James. What did the five fingers say to the face? Slap. It's a celebration. We are going to have one. I want to do some planning. Wait through the holidays. I gotta get some. Honestly, we on a couple weeks. We're not gonna have a Tuesday show because on a Monday I gotta get some wisdom teeth pulled. And I'm not going to be talking to you all the next day. But after all that heals up and all that stuff, we're going to make sure we do some sort of honoring of this momentous occasion. I don't know if it necessarily be a celebration, but we will be in a space to honor the great work that we've done over the last years or so, because that was one of the first topics that we talked about, right? So we learned that our personal identity evolves through childhood, through adolescence and teens, into adulthood and beyond, into our old age, our twilight years of life, right? It also evolves through experiences and transitions, things like loss, things like trauma, things like success and spiritual awakenings, all help to evolve and reshape our identity. It also expands and evolves through memory and meaning making. That means we'll take some time and reprocess, reinterpret the previous experiences that we have, right? So that we can adjust our narrative. Our narrative is the story that we tell ourselves about us and that we tell others about us. That is our narrative story. The other way that our identity evolves is through reflection and intention, right? That means be intentional in your reflection, right? When we start to think back and reprocess some of these experiences or the things, be intentional. Set a standard, set a goal, an objective, set a direction that you would want this to go. What do you want to get from reprocessing, reinterpreting some of these experiences that we had, right? The next way that it evolves is through growth and learning. As we gain new knowledge and skills, new perspectives, and through our personal development, it reshapes our identity, right? One of the reasons I can feel confident in telling people that I am a leader is because I develop new knowledge, new skills, new perspectives, all through personal development, which is identified as professional development in a professional atmosphere. But those skills that I learned in the professional are also transferable to my personal life, right? So through these new skills, through these new perspectives, through these new knowledge, we evolve our identity and take on new roles, right? The other way that we recognize that our identity evolves is that identity is layered and it is fluid, right? Meaning that we can identify as several different things. I can identify as a parent, a lover, and a healer. That is a layered identity. We all identify as more than one thing, right? And then we recognize that identity is fluid. It changes and adjusts depending on the context, right? So although I am still the same person that I am in a work environment, how I exhibit that person may be very different than when I'm in a personal environment, right? Anybody that works with me know I'm going to joke at work and I'm going to joke outside of work. You know what I mean? And sometimes inappropriately, I will tell a joke at the wrong time. That used to be one of the more difficult things when I was in a leadership position because I'm supposed to be the one guiding people and being serious, and I ruin it with a great joke. But I also recognize when there's a time. Take your time, Sherry. I understand. See? Sherry identifies as a lot of different things. Girl, bless you for still being available to these parents. Side note, I still appreciate teachers and educators who still have that old way of thinking in the sense that they understand that it's a community and they are part of the community that is helping shape the minds of our youth. So many educators today like to point and blame. As a matter of fact, I had a cousin that shared a video that's something that was so wild to me. It was a teacher that moved into being a pastor, right? And he got up there in front of his congregation and complained about children coming to the classroom not fed. He blamed the parents. You drove by all these places and you didn't stop to get no food. Your emergency is not mine. All these cliche statements that speak to trauma. That is a person that no longer sees themselves as part of the village. Because us good teachers, us educators that did see ourselves as part of the village, we always kept them snacks there. You don't know if that family can't afford, just because they drove by McDonald's doesn't mean they have McDonald's money. With the cost of everything going up now, it is a wildly neglectful for you to say what parents should have done when your role is to be there for them as well, right? So it's the same like when those children come to your classroom sleepy. I always allowed them to go to say, man, you need a nap? Go sleep on the carpet. We're going to keep doing our thing. I don't know what that child had to endure that night that did not allow them to be able to sleep. And it would be unfair for me to just blame the parents, right? So outside of that, side note. Now we're going to move into today's topic, right? So we've been having all this discussions about identity to lead us to this point here. How do we separate our old identity from our new identity? One of the purposes that it took us so long to get here is so that we could develop the tools that we needed to understand this process of separating our identities, right? That was giving us the tools, give us the confidence and the ability to be able to do that, right? Instead of just thinking of an idea where we would be like, I need to separate. One of the difficult things that we wind up running into in this healing process is the fear that winds up coming into place when people have to move past their old identity. So many people were afraid that if I put this down, this identity that I've had that shaped my life for so long, if I put this down, then who am I? And the only reason that fear resided there is because you limited your identity in the first place. So we had all these discussions so that we'll have the confidence and the tools to navigate separating our old identity from our new identity, right? Separating your identity is a transformation, right? It's more than just an evolution. It is like the caterpillar going in the cocoon and coming out as a butterfly. It is a transformation. Even though pieces of that caterpillar still exist, it comes out as a different thing altogether. So even though pieces of your old stuff will still exist, once you move forward, you will come out as something brand new, right? This process and this transformation involves letting go, which is so scary, especially when we have built our identity around certain events that have happened to us. Thinking about letting go of that is scary, right? But we don't understand that the beauty resides on the other side, right? It involves redefining who we are, right? It involves expanding the definition of who we are. We are no longer just this. We are more than that, right? So we transform by letting go and consciously, right, bringing from the subconscious to our conscious mind a new definition of who we are, right? That is the transformation of separating your identities. The first thing that you want to do in separating your old identity from your new identity is recognize what belongs to that old identity, right? Now, how do we do that? There are several questions that we can ask ourselves to help us recognize what belongs to that old identity. The first thing that we want to think about is what labels, what personality traits did that old identity carry? Did we see ourselves as people pleasers and we no longer want to be that? Do we see ourselves as something as simple as a corporate professional, right? Do we see ourselves as stubborn? What traits or what labels belong to that old identity, right? That means take time and identify who that person was, right? One of the tools that we used to help us do that was a trait map. Trait map was a fantastic thing because it forces you to take time and identify who you are, who you were, who you want to be, right? The next thing you want to think about when you're thinking about how to do this is what patterns or behaviors no longer serve you, right? And that's an honest conversation that we have to have, right? One example that I was thinking about is, have you been in a space of self-medicating? And does that space belong with the new identity, right? Is it something as simple as your diet, the way you feed yourself? Do you need to make changes to how you eat and live? Does that diet fit the person you want to be? Right? I love snacks, but I recognize that in my healthy self, my new identity, I needed to have a new relationship with snacks and my diet altogether, which led to me only eating meat twice, maybe twice a week, right? You want to start thinking about, how do you interact with others? Do you want to were you moving in a space that allows you to feel comfortable with vulnerability, or did you already hold back until you had some arbitrary sign to let you know that it feels that it's okay to be vulnerable, right? Does your new self want to be vulnerable all the time? You have that cue internally. You no longer look for an external sign that you can be vulnerable, because you create that sign within yourself, right? So how you interact with others, were you honest? Were you brutally honest? What type of outcomes did these behaviors get you when you interact with other folk, right? How did they see these discussions? How did they feel about how you talk to them? How do people treat you? How do they respond to you as you as you interact with them? Did people feel drained after interacting with you? Are people afraid to interact with you? You have to take time and have a real conversation with yourself. Not this idea of who you think you are, but really look at what life is showing you, right? You can think that you're an honest person, but how are people responding to your honesty? Do you find that a lot of people, or a lot of times, people are offended by your honesty, are hurt by your honesty? And if that's the outcome, is honesty the right word to describe who you are? Right? You have to have these real conversations with yourself. If you want vulnerability and emotional availability, how are you presenting yourself to others? Are you recognizing that you are dealing with a lot of people who don't have that vulnerability, right? And you're wondering why, right? Because is vulnerability a part of your identity? Right? The next thing you want to think about is, what stories do you keep telling yourself that feel outdated? What stories do we tell ourselves that no longer fit who we are? They feel outdated. I remember when we first started this one of the more difficult words that we had to rebuild a relationship with was this idea of trust, right? And when we talked about trust, some of the things that will pop up are all the things that we learned, like stranger danger. Don't trust until you see this, right? And as we move into our new selves, if we say that, like if I say stranger danger, it sounded outdated. Why? Because the life I live has shown me how untrue that could be. Because there are many times in our lives that the exact thing that you're supposed to be afraid of is the thing that gives you your freedom. There are so many times in my life where I had to trust in a stranger. I talked about one time my first Armenian Thanksgiving. It was an amazing experience. Why? Because it allowed me the opportunity to be able to reshape my relationship with this idea of trust, right? So now we recognize that trust is to be given. Now it can be lost, but it is to be given, right? We don't move in that space of fear where we don't trust strangers, because we know our life has shown us that that is an outdated way of thinking, right? Or the story I shared with you with my friend. He had this time where I remember telling the story where in my city we have this thing called pull apart, right? And it's pretty much a junkyard where you can go get pieces off a car that you need if you're going to do some work. Like they might have your car in a junkyard. You don't need the whole car. You just need the tire off of it. So you can go in there, you pick your piece, you pay for it and leave. When my man, or when he was in a space of survival, it was many times he went to pull apart and would walk right out the door without paying for the stuff that he took, right? And to him, it was okay because he really couldn't afford it. And it was okay by the universe because he never got caught and never got in trouble. He knew that that was something that he needed, right? So now he's in a whole different space. And the opportunity shows up again for him to be able to do that. But now he can afford it, right? So When he faced that fork in the road, he recognized that I got to do this because I can't afford it. It was an outdated story that no longer fit who he was or the direction that he was going in. And he decided to stop and pay, right? Or the story I shared with you all about how at points in my life, my family said that I was determined to be a thug. So much so that I believed it, even though, this is crazy, even though I graduated with high school with 15 scholarships, somewhere my family taught me that I was determined to be a thug, not determined to be successful. Right? And that story sounded outdated. I used to say that. But then when I looked at my life, that was not true. So untrue that when I hung with thugs, they recognized that I had the best chance, and they would support me and protect me in ways that I never imagined because they didn't even believe that I was determined to be a thug. So what stories are you saying about yourself that are outdated? Are you still saying that people take your kindness for weakness? Are you still saying that people take advantage of you? Are you still saying that there's pee in the dating pool? Are you still thinking this process that men are not this or women are not this? These outdated ideas that someone gave to you. Take time and review that, right? The next thing you want to do is clarify your new identity, right? What does that mean? Define who you are becoming. And right now, you may not be able to incorporate that idea, but you want to be able to take time and define it. I wanted to live in abundance. I had to define that. I had to say that. I wanted to stop living in this space of survival. I had to define that. You have to define that. I want to be vulnerable. I have to define that. You have to define that. I want to be open and honest. I had to define that. You have to define that. I wanted to be emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and physically free. I had to define that. Even though those things did not exist at that moment, I had to define the direction that I am going in. This is where I want to go. Take time and define the new identity, right? What values will be central to this new identity, right? I know personally 2 things that I had to identify was the abundance. I wanted to move from that space of survival. The stress of survival alone is enough to bring dis-ease. That is not meant to be a lifestyle. That is supposed to be used for a moment. Once the danger is gone, you don't need to be living like that. But for so many, we were taught survival techniques and built our life on survival techniques that are counteractive to abundance. We were projecting to the universe that we don't have. We don't believe. The faith is minimal, if there at all, right? We didn't have it. The other one I wanted to do is I wanted to stop being so logical. We talked about heart. I wanted to lead with my heart, right? That was important because the most magnetic organ, we say this all the time, that we have is our heart, right? And I've seen what leading with my mind got me. And it did give me some good things. It ain't all tragedy. Leading with my mind got me success. But now in that new identity, I'm comfortable in the ability of my mind. I've achieved success in that. Now I want to see how my heart attracts, because some of the things that my mind attract was not conducive to my heart, right? So we had to recognize, I had to get in a space where one of my main values would be lead with my heart. 50 times more magnetic than any other organ. The closest one to it is your brain. 50 times more magnetic, right? And 5,000 times more stronger. Why would you not lead with your heart, right? So what values will be central to this new self? We defined what was belonged to our old self. And now we're defining where we're going, what will belong to our new selves. And you can use the trait map to do that too, because it will become your roadmap to your success. It will become the tool that you need, the reminder that you need of the direction that you are going in. It will hold you accountable to not slide back into those spaces that no longer serve you, right? The next thing you want to be able to do is, what traits or energy do you want to embody, right? What traits do you want to embody? Embody is alignment. It is incorporating in your mind, body, spirit, and soul. It's all of that in your emotions. What energies do you want to embody? I wanted to embody, do you want to be a welcoming person? One thing that brought confusion to me is how my energy would be stressful to some people. They would feel threatened. They would be afraid. And I never understood that. But it was the energy I embody for my success. No nonsense. Discipline. I don't have that. So what traits or energies do you want to embody? Do you want to align yourself with? Right? We learned a lot about embodiment when we talked about quantum mechanics and how we are sending mixed signals to the universe. Or when we discuss this idea of happiness, the happiness paradox is the perfect example of embodiment, right? That is, those people who search for happiness are the least happy, right? Why is that? Because they are projecting to the universe that they don't have happiness. That means they are not appreciating what they have in their life right now. They anticipate and think that happiness is a consistent emotion like contentment. It is not. It is supposed to come and go, just like fear, right? So when we learned about that embodiment, we recognize that happiness is the come and go. So we enjoy happiness, but we embody an energy of contentment. We are thankful for what we have in our life. We are thankful for the abundance, for the vulnerability. We are thankful for the support. We are not looking for happiness because happiness already exists for us. We are not looking for abundance because abundance already exists for us. So we embody that energy by recognizing that it already exists in our lives and being grateful for that. So if abundance is something that you want to embody, I invite you to look into your life and see where the abundance is already. Emotional availability. If you want that, I want you to take time and look into your life and see where that already exists. Confidence. If you want that, you take time and see where that already exists in your life, and you be thankful. You offer gratitude to that which already exists, right? Because there's nothing new under the sun. It already exists for you. And the only reason you don't have it is because you don't recognize that you already do, right? So, do you want to be a lover? Do you want peace? So many people are talking about they're protecting their peace and taking all these steps to protect their peace. But the reason why they're doing that is because they don't know that peace already exists in your life. They're not thankful for the peace that they have, right? Do you want to feel equipped with the proper tools to navigate this life, right? You already have those tools. Look how much you've done for yourself. Look how far you've come. Look how much you survived. Look how much you've changed, rearranged, adapted, and grown, right? So you already have tools, and you will get more by being thankful for that which already exists, right? So, next thing you want to do is when you clarifying your identity is what will be your new purpose or guiding principle, right? I think together, family, we have established a guiding principle, and one that I know that we have established together, and I can confidently say this, is we want to live an authentic life. And sometimes when we state that, we don't know what that is. But we say this and we've learned sometimes things get clearer once we do the work. Once we step in that direction of authenticity, what it means to live authentically becomes clearer. What will be your guiding principle, your new purpose? What will be your new vision for your life, right? One vision that we share together outside of that is authenticity, is to be a healed individual. And when we said that, we didn't know what that meant. It was easier for us to name what it wasn't than what it was. But now that we've came so far, we can identify that what that means. What does a healed individual mean? Is it emotional stability, or is it the tools to navigate emotion? Was that healed individual was no longer allowing those past traumas, those traumatic experiences to define who we are. We no longer want our identity to be shaped off negativity. We move beyond that, right? That's our new guiding vision. What will be your new purpose or guiding vision? Listen, give me a second. It's getting on my nerves. I know you keep hearing boom in the background, driving me crazy. The next one is huge and very important to me. I think so. It does many, many, many things. And it's very helpful, right? So the next thing you want to do in separating your old identity from your new identity, right? We recognize what was the old identity. We've clarified what the new identity is. Now, how do we separate? One way that we can do that is create a ritual of transition. What does that mean? That is the symbolic act that helps mark the shift in who you are, right? That is honor this transition. Your old self is worthy of honor. Your new self is worthy of honor. Have fun at TikTok, Jordan. You know you can catch the last 15 minutes or something. I know you got your battle. Good luck, good luck, good luck. I hope you drag them. You're a win for liberty. If you got some time, when you get off of this, make sure you go over there to TikTok, Cat's Kitchen, and watch this battle, this versus. I forget, it's Luther and I don't know. Teddy Pendergrass. Don't get me lying. I'm probably lying. Luther Vandross and I don't know. I think it is Teddy. But go over there, support some of the Soul Family, Cat's Kitchen, with the verses, right? So you want to create a ritual of transition. You want to honor this transition. You want to show that it's important to you and God, the universe, the spirit, the ancestors. You want to show that this shift and transition is important. So you create a ritual or ceremony, right? You create the space to be able to grieve your old self and welcome your new self. How do we do this? One way we can do this, and I discussed it myself, is write a letter to your old self, thanking it for all that you have learned, all that your old self has taught you that was valuable. Again, even though we are shifting beyond our old self, your old self is worthy of honor. Take some time and think that. Write a letter to yourself. I said I had a ceremony for myself, and one of the things I wanted to do is write a letter to myself, and I did that. And it was interesting having my spirit write a letter to my physical, right? My spirit was telling me, look, we're moving in this direction. I appreciate all you've done. You've been an amazing person, but now we need to let some of that go. I honored that. I honored my old self. I allowed my new identity. You allow your new identity to honor your old self by writing a letter to yourself, thanking it. Because all you learned in your old self is valuable and important. So you thank you. Pat yourself on the back for all that you have learned and endured, right? It is worthy, right? And doing that creates the space for you to also be able to grieve this transition, because you are letting go of something that has been so important to you. Even though it no longer suits you, it no longer benefits who you want to be, it is important. It was important. So you must honor that. Write a letter to yourself. You can do a fire ceremony, which is burn something, or you can bury something that represents the past self, right? We grew up, I'll never forget, when I was a kid and growing up, something that was huge was time capsules. A time capsule is an example of this. I mean, time capsule was so huge. I remember Nickelodeon had this countdown where they were burying a time capsule, something that represented the old, right? That is a ceremony. You can bury it. That time capsule was a perfect example. Bury something. Or, like I said, you can have a fire ritual. Generally, when people do some work with me, especially when we go on spiritual journeys, we do a fire ceremony. We write down on one piece of paper what we want to release. We write down on another piece of paper what we want to receive. And we put that into the fire, allow it to return to the essence and go off and work in our favor. So you can burn something or bury something that represents the past. This example of a ritual. Another thing that you can do is create a new mantra or affirmation, or you can use visual or a visual symbol for your new identity, right? This again ties back into that trait map. That is a visual symbol of our new identity. That's one of the reasons I said to take your time. Color it, color coordinate it, make it meaningful to yourself, and then you hang it on the wall. That becomes your new identity. It becomes your reminder. It is a symbol of your new identity. You can do, as a matter of fact, it's wild because unconsciously I did this, right? I had a friend that sent me this picture of David Ruffin. And if you've been to my place, you've seen this picture on my wall, right? It was a picture of David Ruffin sitting on a chair with a lion beside him, and he's petting the lion's head, right? And the person sent me the picture, and they was like, yo, when I saw this picture, I thought about you. It just seems so much like you. And when they said that to me, I was like, what? You think I'm David Ruffin cool? Ain't nobody come to see your Otis cool? Now, I thought I was cool, but I definitely didn't think I was no David Ruffin swagger, right? Somebody else pointed that to me, right? And I admire that energy, that confidence, that smoothness, that certainty in who he was. The confidence to tame a lion. And I put that on my wall. That became a roadmap or a picture for my new identity. So you can do stuff like that, right? Lastly, having a conversation with Liberty. She is, through building with us and encouragement and all that, she's going live and streaming too, right? And she sent me this picture of a microphone as she was going to use it as a background. And my first thought was, yo, that'd be dope art. Why? A microphone is so much a part of my life right now. I spend so much time behind a microphone that this is my new identity. With work, I spend time behind a microphone. With personal, I spend time behind a microphone. So that deserves to be on my wall because it is a symbol of my new identity. So you create a mantra or affirmations, which is why we do this every week. I am open, loving, and pure. That is a new mantra. I am open. I am loving. I am pure. Because whatever comes after I am, we become. I am loving. Guess what? I become loving. I am open. Guess what? I become open. I am pure. That's pure of heart, pure of intention. That does not mean you have not made mistakes or you don't have a little dirt under your nails. It's pure heart, pure of intention. I am pure. Because that's how we function, right? So you want to create a new mantra, affirmation, or visual symbols of your new identity, right? This is important because these rituals Make the invisible transformation feel real. This transformation is intangible. We talking about it, but we can't touch. I can't touch the chain from guarded to open. I can't touch that. So these symbols become the tangible change that we need to see. It become proof of the adjustments, right? It makes the intangible tangible. That's who we are now. Cat, I know you gone, but I appreciate you. The next thing we want to do is practice living the new identity. That means start showing up as your new self. Practice makes perfect, right? You're not going to have it all together, but you'll be amazed at how much you have, right? So as you practice, that's where you get to exercise that idea of grace, because you're not going to have it perfect when you first start, but you'll get better with every attempt. So you start showing up as your new self. What does that mean? You speak from your new voice. If you identify as a healer, then you speak as a healer, right? And it's so funny because one of my new identities is a healer. My new self is a healer, right? And if you're here, if you didn't know, I had to practice this, right? So that new self shows up. I talk as though I've been doing this for years. I'm an expert on this healing identity. But I just been doing it 2 years. And I struggled through the first year. We working on year 3, but it's only really been 2 years, not 20. I lived in my old identity for 25, 30 years, for a long time. That this identity of healer or loving or open and vulnerable or emotionally available is new. But I started speaking from the voice of that person. And it also allowed me to be able to recognize when I'm speaking to a person that has this as well. So if I identify as vulnerability, you know what? Game recognize games. If I identify as vulnerable, you know what it makes it easier to do? Recognize someone else who is vulnerable. Because you appreciate and recognize the work, the sacrifice, and the steps that it takes to be that person. How strong, how tough it is, right? You start speaking from your new voice, giving advice, stepping back, whatever that means. And then you start making choices that are in alignment with your new self. And sometimes these choices mean letting go of old dynamics, right? So one of the things I recognize when we got this space is that I surrounded myself with a lot of people who had an energy that I did not want, that energy of emotional unavailability. And I talk about that a lot because emotions are important. They are the natural thing, right? And when I recognized that, I had to start making choices. Do I want to keep that dynamic in my life, or do I want to let go? And I chose to let go. You have to start making choices that are in alignment with that new identity, right? You want to surround yourself with people who support your evolution. People who want to see you become the best version of yourself, right? That's where that whole idea of the 7 spaces of healing came into play. Because it creates, it winds up being a tool that we can use to cultivate these spaces within ourselves And how do we recognize these spaces so that we can place ourselves in it, so that we'll be surrounded by people who support the evolution? Why do they support it? Because they've gone through it themselves, or they are going through it right now. Right? So you surround yourself with people who support your evolution. They say a man is without honor only in his own home. That's why Jesus left. Because the people in his town did not support his evolution. He had to go find people that supported his evolution. I firmly believe that a man is without honor only in his own home. So you have to step outside of your box, your comfort zone, your area, to find these people who will support your evolution, right? Surround yourself with that energy, an energy of growth and support, right? The last thing you want to do, and it's very important, is understand this. Integrate, don't erase. So when you're moving from your identity, your old identity, it's not that it no longer exists. It's that you find a good balance between old self and new self. You only letting go of the parts of your old self that no longer will suit you. But there are many things that your old self taught you that will benefit your new self, right? So we have to understand that in this process, we are integrating, not erasing, right? You do not have to reject all of your old self. After we created the space to be able to honor it, it does not make sense to reject every piece of your old self. And we're not. So separating your old self from your new self is less of a separation and more of an integration, right? You want to honor what your old self has taught you. That's why we talked about the transition activity, transitional ceremony, something like that. You honor. Your old self is worthy of honor. Look how much it has done. Look how much you have survived. Look how long you have endured. Look whose lives you have shaped and changed. Honor your old self, right? Then you keep the parts that still serve you. Like I said, my old self had discipline. Even when I didn't recognize it. It had discipline because I can see that I'd set a goal, work towards that goal, and achieve that goal. Why would I leave that behind? Why would I erase that? I would not. Because that discipline will benefit my new self. My new self is going to set new goals. So I'm going to need that discipline to work towards those goals again, right? So you keep the parts that still serve you, because everything about your old self is not bad. And that is the biggest fear of that letting go. Moving into that new space, people feel as though they're letting go of everything, and they ask themselves, well, if I let go of this, what do I have? Space for your new self. You're making room. So that's what you have. You have the opportunity to redefine who you are, right? But as we learn, we're not erasing that, we're integrating. So that helps us feel comfortable with letting go of the fear of this transition from old to new, right? Last thing you want to do is recognize that it is only a chapter in your book and not the whole book, right? And if you think about it, it's not the first time you've made this evolution, this transformation. You could think about who you were as a teenager to who you now are as an adult. You already have the tools to make this evolution, right? So you recognize that this is not the end of the book. It is just a new chapter, and you'll have more chapters after that, right? And more importantly, what we want to understand is that this integration of old self and new self, it creates the wholeness that we want and not a fragmented sense of identity. It creates the whole. Two halves make a whole, right? So that's what we're doing. So again, how do we separate our old self from our new self? We want to recognize what belongs to the old self, identify what will be the new self, create a transition so that we can honor this stepping forward, this change, this metamorphosis, this transformation, right? We practice living the new identity, and we recognize that we are integrating, not erasing. Family, that is how we separate our old self from our new self. Thank you. So that is the end of the identity thing. And I thank you. We went over a little bit, but y'all understand. I appreciate your time. Next week, we'll start moving into the laws of attraction. That winds up being important to me because I recognize so much of my life has been a projection. My subconscious projecting my reality. And I never really gave the power, or we don't give enough power to attraction and what it does. We recognize that there are laws of attraction, but we don't recognize how we're already attracting things that we don't want. So next week, we'll start working on our laws of attraction. There are 7 of them. 7 is a magical number. One of the reasons why 7 spaces of healing, 7 laws of attraction. 7 is the number for God. It is also a number of completion, because we are learning that our direct connection, the temple of our Father, is within. So these things are subtle reminders of our direct connection to the Creator, right? So I hope to see you next week as we move into laws of attraction. Thursday, we will continue reading Razor Blade Tears. It's been exciting, fun. Hopefully you can catch us here 7 o'clock Eastern. YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram for book club. If we don't see you for book club, I hope to catch you back here for Tuesday for the laws of attraction, where we'll begin the laws of attraction. Now, if you got some time, try to go over there again and support the Soul Family, Cat's Kitchen on TikTok, and support the battles, because we got Liberty in there and Cat in there as well. So we definitely got to support our Soul Family. And for you all, I thank you, and hopefully that you got some tools that'll help you be able to navigate this integration of old self and new self. Family, thank you, and I'll see you Thursday. Peace.